am delighted to share with you this throwback episode. This was an extremely popular episode when it aired, and I think it's because many people want to be in business, but don't necessarily want to be in it by themselves. On this episode, we dive into franchising, which is a way to do this. And we often think about franchising from a food perspective. We all know McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A. But there's also something known as non-food franchises. And they can be really cool because they often don't require as large of a funding outlay, and you don't have to run those long restaurant hours. So take a listen to my guests on this episode and learn a bit more about how you may be able to dive into your own business without dealing with food and without being by yourself. And before I press play on this one, I want to let you all know that I am kicking off my first accountability group on March 1st. And you may say, well, what is an accountability group? What does this mean to me? Why should I know about this? Well, we're going to meet as a group, and it's going to be a small group. I'm putting together a small group of people where we will meet once per week to help move the needle in your business or career, helping you to stay focused on your big goals. You will connect with other entrepreneurs and or career professionals who are growing and moving forward as well. We will share wins, challenges, resources, and so much more. I will help hold you accountable for the goals you set for yourself. And this is so important. I recently ran across this quote that says, if you hang out with chickens, you're going to cluck. And if you hang out with eagles, you're going to fly. Well, it's important that we select the people that we surround ourselves with. And if we want to get things done, having people to help hold us accountable to fly like an eagle is fantastic. If you're interested in being a part of the accountability group, you simply have to have a call with me. It is an application process, but it's a very simple one. You go to my website, monicaallen.com. You click at the top of the page and you click book a call. When you click there, you will sign up and we will schedule some time together. Again, you do have to apply. Again, I want to make sure that it's a group of eagles so we can all fly higher. Now on to this week's episode. With a franchise, you have someone who cares as much about the business name and image as you do because they own it. Jim Evanger. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. I am so excited about my guest today because if you're not already in business for yourself or you want to expand your business portfolio, this may be just the way to do it. My guest today is Jon Ostenson. With both of us hailing from the University of Georgia and a corporate background, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to running a business. Specifically today, though, we're talking about Jon's business, Franbridge Consulting, a firm specializing in connecting entrepreneurs and executives with premier non-food franchise opportunities. Check out my chat with Jon. Hi, Jon. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Absolutely, Monica. Excited to be here.
And I'm so excited to have you here. I'm looking forward to our conversation because I think there's a lot of people who want to own businesses, but they just don't know where to start. And when I was talking to you at an entrepreneurs organization dinner, and you mentioned that you focus on non-restaurant franchises, which I didn't even know was a thing, I was so excited. So tell me a little bit about how did you get into this business and why?
Yeah, 30-second version of my background, spent most of my career in the corporate world, like many of your listeners, and had that desire to do something a little more entrepreneurial, but didn't know what it looked like. And after a good run in the corporate world, finally broke free of the golden handcuffs and said, all right, let's do this. And for me, I kind of stumbled into it, to be honest. I had the opportunity to step in as president of Shelf Genie franchise system. Shelf Genie is custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries. We've got a couple hundred locations. I still say we. They have a couple hundred locations across North America. So I had the opportunity to step in and really run the day-to-day back-end support for all these newly minted business owners. And really, for me, it opened up my eyes to this world that I've now dubbed non-food franchising. Long story short, I ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie. We spun off. We've invested in franchises on the franchisee side now. So I've been on the franchisor and the franchisee side, and I brought in other partners. We've invested in franchises as well. But really, we've got good people running those for us now, and it allows me to spend about 90% of my time helping to educate and helping others walk through the process of finding their opportunities in this world of non-food franchising, which I know we'll dig into. So yeah, love what I do. Love our model. It's zero cost to work with us. We get funded by about 600 franchise brands on the back end. So for them, it's a sales and marketing cost. Nothing gets passed on to our clients. So it really allows us to be consultative and really help a lot of people step into business ownership.
Wow, that sounds really amazing, because I started a business on my own, but to actually have the opportunity to have someone help you along the way. Tell me a little bit more about what people can expect when they work with your company.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we try to streamline the process. Right now, just for context, franchising represents about $800 billion in the national GDP. It is a lot larger than people realize. And that encompasses about 4,000 franchise brands across a wide array of industries. About half of those are in food or lodging. We also don't work with hotels. It's just a different animal. But when you take those out and you niche down, we still have close to 2,000 opportunities, and we're always adding new ones into the mix. And so, we'll touch on these industries in a minute, but everything from home and property services to automotive to health and wellness, fitness, to businesses catering to kids or the aging population or B2B type models, lots of different niches out there that people just don't have on their radar, don't know about. What we do with clients is we get to know them, through a call or two. We kind of know the right questions to ask to help us narrow down the field a little bit more. And then we'll bring typically around nine or 10 opportunities that we'll review with our clients. And these are opportunities that, match their criteria, are available in their market. And we see resonating with others, with similar backgrounds around the country. I mean, that's a great thing, is we get visibility into who's doing the deals. You may go out to a website directly and say, hey, I don't see any locations in the US for this Canadian brand. Well,
Right.
maybe they did 50 deals in the past couple of weeks and you just don't know about it yet. We get the insight into the back end. We get to know the franchisors, and we're very careful in kind of vetting them from a leadership team standpoint, a financial model, the niche, their competitive advantages, and then really take it down to probably 40 to 50 at any given time that I'm focused on for my clients.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about how many do you work with?
We work with 600. We're affiliated with the largest brokerage system in the US, but we spend a lot of time with the different development groups. I was in Omaha last week with about 20 franchise brands, many of which you would not have heard of yet, Monica, but they're kind of those emerging brands that are growing quickly.
Wow. For your business, are you out? I know you're out connecting individuals or couples or whatever who may want to get into a franchise, but you're also on the other side looking for franchisors that fit with your company, that you can put the two together. Or do they come looking for you?
They usually come looking for us. We're very blessed that we do more deals than 99% of other brokers in the US. And so we stay busy, but it also allows us access to a lot of franchisors that may say, hey, we don't want to go out there and, we're not ready to turn on the spigot for the open market, but we'd really like to work with Franbridge and you guys, because I like to think that we work with the best people in the industry. We've been given that feedback. Allows us to really get our choice of kind of first cut. The challenge right now, Monica, is people are waking up to this being this world of opportunity, and it's a good fit for a lot of them. Things are going fast in a lot of markets, and markets like Atlanta, Dallas, Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, Florida. I mean, things are flying. So I'm always working to position my clients ahead of other candidates for the same opportunities in a given market. But no, within our process, we're making that introduction to the brands. If we present 9 or 10 opportunities, the client then narrows it down to 3 or 4 to actually have a conversation with. They can drop out of the process at any given time. There's no obligation, but we'll kind of hold our client's hand through the process, introduce them to funding partners if they're looking to go with an SBA loan or retirement plan rollover. got a great franchise attorney. We've got a great coach that we bring in to kind of help them out of the gate. So we really try to be kind of a turnkey provider, and also companies that are thinking about franchising. And so this is something that I just put together a video series for the Entrepreneurs Organization, which you referenced, talking about if you have an existing business, is it franchisable, and is that a good path to scale it? Like anything, there are pros and cons, and it's a lot of fun to kind of see some of these newer businesses say, hey, maybe it makes sense to go let other people run with this in other market. That's another facet of what we do.
Yeah, that's really cool. We've actually looked at that for our business, Zeus's Closet. We haven't completely written it off, but COVID kind of stopped our momentum with it. We had the documents done and all of the things, but COVID really kind of put a little damper on that excitement around it. But we'll see. Maybe that's something we'll revisit in the future.
It's interesting. COVID has definitely impacted, obviously, some industries more than others. Others have taken off, during that time. I think some of the larger fitness as well as some food concepts, definitely got challenged. But I think the strong ones survived. And then we saw other industries just booming. And I call it they call it the great resignation. I call it the great realignment, because we're seeing more interest than ever before in business ownership, which I think bodes well for our country. Entrepreneurism is alive and well, and COVID's caused a lot of people to question the path they're on and say, maybe now it's time to try something new and step out.
Yeah, I like that. The great realignment. I like that a lot better than the great resignation, because most of us still do have to work and do something, but to align with something that's a better fit for you, a better fit for your lifestyle, a better fit for what you want for your family. I really do like that. That's my first time hearing that, Jon. So
You're welcome to use it.
Thank you. What would you say are 2 or 3 of the hottest franchises right now?
Yeah. What we're seeing people continue to say, hey, Jon, what's the highest return on investment with the fewest number of employees? Now, to some degree, I think we've always gotten that feedback, but there's this real big shift really across the country to non-sexy businesses, pardon my French, but I joke that non-sexy is the new sexy. That's what people want. So I've got clients that are thriving with dumpster businesses or other waste management related businesses. We just recently did 3 gutter deals, gutter industry, $6 billion industry and growing. Great financial model behind one of these opportunities. We had a Wall Street attorney outside of Boston buy into a gutter business.
Oh, wow.
Maybe he's always lived in the gutter. I don't know. You can say that about attorneys, but the reason they love that business is the average revenue per location is 1.7 million with a 30% EBITDA margin, meaning
wow,
a little over 500,000 on the bottom line from a profit standpoint. So I always tell my clients, even if you do half as well as the model, is that still an attractive business? And the great thing about franchising is you get to see kind of the numbers before you go in. What are the average franchisees doing? So lots of interest in property services, whether it be insulation, or we're investors in a driveway company that's just booming. But then a lot of interest in health and wellness and fitness too. We just did a deal for a fitness concept that's more senior related, 55 and above, who is a segment that's largely uncatered to in the fitness market. We're seeing some interest in B2B type businesses. We did a placement in Indianapolis recently with a business coaching franchise. We had a client in Birmingham buy into a cost analyst franchise that works with small and medium-sized business owners to help them find areas for cost savings, and they get to share that savings with them, for the next couple of years. Lots of unique models out there. There's one that I'm really excited about that we just partnered with. It's a drug testing franchise. It's a the largest non-medical testing group in the US. They've got about 70 locations, and it's drug and alcohol and DNA testing, but they don't prick your finger or take blood. So no HIPAA regulations, no medical requirements, 1 to 2 employees. And they've got some neat technology around being able to deliver results instantly to an employer who's doing drug testing for a new hire or existing employees. And the numbers on this business, Monica, all in investment right around $100,000, including working capital, maybe call it 125 to round up. Per location, they're averaging 585 in revenue with 200,000 drop in the bottom line.
Wow.
1 to 2 employees delivering that. So it's those are the kind of businesses that people are resonating with right now.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, especially with having that profit number at the bottom is amazing. Oh gosh, I have to think about our business because I don't know about those numbers, but Question for you in regards to getting into a franchise. What's one of yours that has maybe the lowest entry? I'm going to call it an entry fee, but I know that's not what the correct term is, but what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say all in working capital included, probably actually the two that I just mentioned, the business coaching franchise and the cost analyst franchise, both of those you can get in for around 70,000
Okay.
all in, and really scale those up at your own pace. I'd say 75% of the deals that we do fall between probably 125,000 and 300,000. So that's kind of the range a lot of things fall into, but those are two examples that are lower. I tell Monica, I tell people all the time, everyone's in a different financial situation, but when you look at your total net worth, including home equity and everything else, assets minus liabilities, if you're below 150,000, it may not be the best time to step into a business or at least a franchise. I think it's a good idea to not stretch yourself too much, but make sure you have a little bit of cushion going in. So I encourage people to kind of get that at least 125, 150 range. And then it's, hey, let's start looking at opportunities. But I think it's something good to shoot for. And also franchises aren't for everybody. There's a lot of EO members that are too entrepreneurial, but we also do have a lot of business owners that say, hey, I love the idea of stepping into something where I'm starting on third base and not first base. And I can be in business for myself, but not by myself. And they just find some of those attributes attractive of not having to figure out product market fit day one, which is, I mean, I applaud you guys. I mean, people that have been successful starting from scratch. I mean, that's not easy, as you know, and you talk about.
Yes, that's what I love to talk about on this podcast, actually, is because, of course, there are ups and downs in any business. Even with a franchise, you're going to have your moments of customer dissatisfaction or whatever the case may be. But it's definitely helpful, I think, to have someone to hold your hand a little bit and to have a community to back you up. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because I do know that there are people who want to step out on their own, but to have kind of a little bit of a parachute could be helpful. And I think that's kind of what a franchise is. Another question for you. When selecting a franchise, what are some things that people should consider to pick the right one for them?
Yeah, what I find is oftentimes people are pretty open-minded. Sometimes they'll come in and say, hey, I know all the real estate agents in town. If there's a business that I could do that it could piggyback those referral relationships, that would be great. But sometimes, I'd say most of the time, people come in with an open mind. About 85 to 90% of my clients end up picking something that was never on their radar. So it's kind of fun for us to peel back the onion and then see the light bulb go on as we talk about the day-to-day of these different businesses. But I'd say the things that matter most to me would be, obviously the financial model's got to check the boxes of what you're looking to achieve. I think how long has business been in business, and what's their track record, and oftentimes we are working with more emerging brands where maybe they've got 10 or 50 locations, but not 500. Well, then that leadership team is all the more important. And so really there's nothing more important than that leadership team, their track record, the relationship you form with them. If they don't have franchise experience, but more industry experience, I would want them to see them bringing on other franchise veterans, just because I think that's a dynamic that needs to be understood, that support relationship. I look at the competitive advantages. I've only had one client over the years that has not been able to make it. And, he chose to throw in the towel about 3 months in. He lived 3 hours outside of Nashville, and great guy, great business, but bought into a mosquito business that, it's a competitive space. And I think not being on the ground in the market was a disadvantage for him. And after 3 months, he said, I could keep this going, but it's just going to be too much work. And so, but I think a business like that can be run, but I'd like to see them usually with more competitive advantages or uniques or proprietary elements. So that's something I put weight on. Obviously, the market availability and, what's the long-term plan? As a business owner, you're building up a cash flow, you're able to write off expenses, but you're also building towards an exit. And
Right.
this is really interesting, Monica. It's eye-opening to people to realize you can actually make really good money on an exit in a franchise. And there was a study done recently where they looked over a 10-year period. It was done by the Rinker School of Business out of Florida. And they looked at over a 20-year period, 2,000 transactions that took place of franchise and non-franchise businesses and like-kind industries, and found that the franchise businesses traded at a multiple of about 1.5 times non-franchised. And so part of the reason there is you might have other franchisees in the joining markets who want to, increase their footprint. Like we personally bought out several of their driveway franchisees, Or you may have the franchisor who has a long pipeline of people that have said, hey, we want to buy that business. And they've said, sorry, it's unavailable in that market. It just kind of gives you a running start and more options when you look to exit down the road.
Yeah. And that's a valid point though, and a very good point, because I know for me, I still haven't quite figured out my exit plan yet, but to have someone knowing that you have a group of people that may be interested in buying your business from the jump is fantastic, I think, for sure. Back to the business that you are running, Jon, what has been your biggest challenge in growing your own company over the past few years?
I think it's what do you delegate versus what do you control yourself? Like all of us type A entrepreneurs, and I know you and Ethan are definitely this way. It's hard to turn over the reins on certain things. And so I think realizing that a lot of times we work through partnerships rather than direct employee relationships, which is great. I mean, my first EO business, we had 40 employees. I realized I'd much rather spend my time with clients than employees. That's just how I'm wired. And so I think coming to that realization, and now we've got partnerships with different funding partners. We've got our franchise attorney, we've got our coach, we've got these other franchisors. Getting to that point of realizing we don't have to do everything ourselves and really stay in our lane and be experts at the segments we want to focus on has allowed us to be more successful with our clients. But I'd say the challenge is the currency that we all have limited supply of is time. And so it's just constantly evaluating how time is spent, with our assistants, how should they be spending their time? Where are those high value activities? We don't want to just stay busy, but we want to focus on the right things for our clients. So that's kind of always top of mind for me. It's a challenge and an opportunity.
Right, for sure. And how many team members do you have now that are, you consider on your payroll?
It's a beautiful model. I've got 2.
That is beautiful.
It's a beautiful model, but I've got franchisors essentially working for me because they're spending time with my clients every day. So I get updates late in the day on what conversations took place. I've got multiple funding partners. I've got the legal partner, the coaching partner. I could do all that in-house.
Right.
But instead, I just have this team, and I love it. It's a great model.
Yeah, I was going to say, but why do it in-house, right? When you can outsource those pieces, and those people have their own business. So they're fulfilling that piece of their pie, their entrepreneurial spirit. That's
and I
great.
will say, Monica, we do have employees on the businesses that we have an investment in. So, I mentioned the driveway company with that one.
Right.
We've got a team. But we get on a call with our general manager every week. We shoot some notes back and forth. We get together as a team in person once a month. And so we do have those kind of setups as well, but on the core business consulting side, small group.
How many franchises do you have in your portfolio?
We have investments in 5 currently.
Okay.
5, and they're all multi-location ones, all in the home and property services umbrella.
Okay, nice. I was going to say earlier that a lot of them that seem to have pretty high profit margins seem to be in the home sector, which I know a lot of us are spending money on our homes all the time. We don't have a choice, really.
Yeah, and they are, and that's where people have been attracted. I think there's just such market demand, and if you're able to come in, oftentimes it's a fragmented market. You're able to bring a white collar approach to a blue collar industry in a lot of cases and come in. You've got the technology, you've got the branding, you've got all the marketing just dialed in from day one. So you're not having to replicate that. And I mean, they're just unique. So we've got a paint company right now that started by chemists that has patented paint and patented application. They're able to provide a 15-year warranty, factory finish look. It's little nuances like that that really allow you to be disruptive in a large commoditized type space.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because as you were talking about the investments that you have, I was thinking this is almost like, I know I'm going to break it down to something very simple, but like shoes, if you're working in a shoe store, you're always seeing something that you like. I can imagine that you're, meeting these franchisors and you're like, oh, that's such a good idea. I mean, you have to maybe rein yourself in a little bit to not always want to jump in, own a little piece.
You're 100% right. I love the shoe analogy. No, I do. And I do a lot of beta testing of testing different models with investments. But I always tell my EO form, there are a lot of shiny objects out there. There's so much opportunity across the board, but trying to stay in our lane and stay focused is where I can add the most value to our clients.
Right. For sure. What's one thing you would tell your younger self if you could turn back the hands of time?
I had a great run in the corporate world and feel very blessed with the folks I had the opportunity to work with. I don't know that I would change that much. I think maybe I would have made the jump a little bit sooner. I left the corporate world at 36, about 6 years ago. I probably would have done that a little bit sooner in hindsight, but I get with a lot of younger folks now, and we'll mentor them or coach them just kind of on the side. And one thing I tell them is, there's seasons to grind. Where like I did not like my first job, and long story there, coming out of the University of Georgia, go Dogs. I know you guys would agree, but it was a season of grinding. And I lived at home for the first year while I paid off my student loans, and I realized, hey, I've got to grind, and that opened up opportunities to go over to India and work for 6 months, which I never thought I'd do that, and go back to grad school. And the advice I give folks is, hey, seasons of grinding, seasons where you just stay where you are, don't look at what's around the corner, but also say yes to opportunities. I mean, you're really not going to have any regrets about things you say yes to. I mean, in most cases, but you will on things that you pass or say no to. So yeah, I think being adventurous and being open-minded. I was in the apparel industry too. My long corporate run post-grad school was Carter's Oshkosh B'gosh, a large children's apparel company. Never thought I'd be in that industry, but the opportunity to work for the president and do some neat things. But yeah, you never could have told my kid Jon at UGA that he'd be going to India in 2 years and then working in the baby clothes industry years after that, and then going into franchising after that. So I think staying open-minded, and you learn something from all along the way, and allows you to be able to relate to more people as well.
For sure. I like the idea of, saying yes more so than saying no, because you can regret those opportunities that you pass up, especially when it comes to working. And, I moved back home for a while to pay off student loans and to get ahead of the game a bit as well. I think sometimes people look at that as a negative, but I've told my kids, you go off to college, if you need to come back home for a few years, do it. You can save money. You can invest in a business or a franchise. I had a customer once that he graduated from college and his dad gave him a franchise as a gift. And it was like a yogurt franchise or something. But do you find that younger people are sometimes gifted franchise opportunities, or they go into them early on? What have you seen with that?
I had a couple of clients that were looking to gift it. I'd say that's not as normal from what I see, but I have had multiple cases of like a father-son or father-daughter, or maybe the father's going into it with the expectation that down the road, if my daughter or son wants to take this on, that they could. We did do a deal recently. It was 3 brothers and a father, and all of them had been fairly successful, but all the guys were in their 20s and 30s. I mean, they're still young, but they kind of went in on the business together and took down a large area. And their plan is to build up a portfolio. And that is something that we see is pretty common as an approach. A lot of our clients will either be building out a portfolio or want to build a portfolio of businesses, provide some diversity. In some cases, they may complement each other or diversify from each other. I can give case study after case study, like John Bradley, mid-40s, pharmacist his whole life, started buying FedEx routes on the side a couple of years back, built it up to 25 trucks, came to us recently and said, hey, I want to buy a home services business, something totally different. And so he ended up purchasing, after we looked at a number of opportunities, he ended up purchasing several locations of a garage renovation business, kind of a one-stop shop that he really fell in love with. I've got a client of mine, Nathan Bocock in South Carolina, only 39 years old. And Nathan's actually now coaching our clients. Nathan is the largest franchisee of 2 Men in a Truck moving service, operates in like 10 markets, $30 million business. Well, he's built up a great little organization and infrastructure underneath him. And a couple of years ago, he came to us, and we've since done a couple of different deals together where he's purchased additional franchises in other industries, put a young general manager in charge, oftentimes someone he sources through his church, that's earned his trust. He says, hey, here's a little bit of equity, go make us proud. And in every case, he's come back and bought additional locations. So things are going well. And so we do see that approach, both from franchise as well as non-franchise, of building out a portfolio of businesses. I always encourage people to start with one, give it your full focus until it's in a good place. Then you go to number 2. But I think having that vision is very common, is a good way to go.
That's really, really great. I didn't even know 2 Men in a Truck was a franchise. So you see, you just never know these things.
Meineke, Midas. I mean, you see businesses all the time. You don't know we're franchises. They're out there.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the fact, again, that it's non-food. I think so many times, or non-restaurant, we often think about, the McDonald's and the Burger Kings of the world, and, some of the smaller food industry things also. But the opportunity, you don't have to do restaurant. You don't have to do food. I know there's a lot of kind of negatives to that, running a restaurant,
Yeah, I'd say 95% of my clients want industries outside of food. Now, God bless the 5% that want food. I mean, we need them desperately.
We do need them.
But the 95% resonate with kind of my view on it too, that my theory is there are a lot of ways to make money and some are easier than others. And with food, it does require heavier capital. It outlays typically, and maybe more staff and working 24/7 or some variation of that, and inventory. And I think if you've got Jimmy John's or something like that, a recognizable brand, it could work very well, especially if you have a lot of them. I mean, I've got clients that own 50 McDonald's or 100 Wendy's. That's very common. But if you're going to own just a couple, it's more of a job than an ownership model. So I don't know. My background's not food. I just think, again, these other industries are where I'm interested, and that's where most of my clients are. And we actually have a book coming out in September called Non-Food Franchising. So really excited about that one as well.
Wow. That is fantastic. Yeah. So we'll have to make sure we link to that when it does come out. We'll add it to the show notes. That is great. That is really great. So Jon, tell people the best way to reach out to you if they're interested in exploring a non-restaurant franchise.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, sign up for our monthly newsletter. We try to put out great content every month. And by doing so, we'll also make sure all of your listeners get a copy of our book when it's released in September. In addition, follow us on LinkedIn, and we typically put stuff out there 5-6 times a week, and we've gotten good feedback on it. So I think that'd be a good next step for those that are interested in learning more.
Okay, that sounds great. Jon, I really appreciate your time. This has been so enlightening for me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on. Enjoyed our conversation.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jon. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
This episode is sponsored by Zeus's Closet, where we're like a tattoo shop for your clothes. We have heard a lot about franchising today. And one thing that I can say for every franchise that I've run across is that branding is typically well done. Team members have on the same logoed apparel representing the company. Here at Zeus's Closet, we offer a solopreneur package that allows your firm to do the same. Whether it is just you or a team of 5, 20 or more, you should be wearing branded apparel. I have people stop me in the grocery store to ask me about my logoed shirt, and thus I get to share the details of my business. If you're not wearing your company's brand, you're doing yourself a disservice. So right now you can save 20% on a solopreneur package when you use the promo code BOSS. You can see the link in the show notes to grab your package and save. You can save right now 20% on a package for each member of your team. So grab them for everyone. Jon, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise around franchising. If you would like to reach Jon to inquire about his services, you can visit him at his website, franbridgeconsulting.com, or on LinkedIn. His contact info is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening today. As always, I'm so grateful for you. Please take a moment to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Become Your Own Boss Podcast. Take a moment to leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, and if you have just an extra couple of minutes, actually write a review for the podcast. That helps us grow and makes others interested. And if you subscribe, you'll get a notification whenever a new episode is posted. As always, I ask you to share the podcast with a friend. We are growing, guys, and that is so exciting. So please continue to share. Now is the time. Now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss.